There's a force within you, a force more powerful than motivation, more enduring than inspiration, more essential than talent. It's the thing that keeps you moving when everything around you says stop. It's the thing that shows up when the excuses start piling up. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's relentless. It is the one quality that determines whether you rise or fall, whether you build or break, whether you endure or retreat. It is willpower. Willpower is the backbone of every long-term success. It's what keeps you consistent when life gets chaotic. It's what allows you to delay gratification, to push through resistance, to say no to comfort and yes to growth. Without it, you drift. Without it, your goals remain distant. Without it, your plans remain paper. But the good news is this: it's not something you're born with. It's not a fixed trait. It's not reserved for the chosen few. It is a muscle. And like any muscle, it can be trained. It can be built. It can be strengthened over time. Most people think they lack willpower because they've failed to follow through, because they've made promises and broken them, because they've started and stopped 100 times. But that's not a reflection of what they're capable of. It's a reflection of what they've trained. If you've never trained your willpower, of course it's weak. If you've never put yourself in conditions that require it, of course it's unfamiliar. But once you start building it, once you start challenging it, testing it, growing it, you begin to unlock a level of strength that few people ever access. A level of consistency that separates the dreamers from the doers. A level of self-control that makes your goals non-negotiable. And that's what this is about. Not tips, not hacks, not surface level tricks. This is about understanding willpower at its core, how it works, what depletes it, what strengthens it, and how to build a life that reinforces it every single day. Because willpower is not just what you use to get through hard moments. It's the force that shapes who you become. You already have it inside you. You've used it before, when it mattered, when it counted, when everything was on the line. The problem is not that you don't have willpower. The problem is that you don't access it consistently. You haven't conditioned it. You haven't built the internal structure to support it. This is not about becoming a robot. It's not about becoming emotionless or rigid. It's about taking ownership. Ownership of your behavior. Ownership of your decisions. Ownership of your future. Because no one is coming to do the work for you. No one is going to build your life. No one is going to fix your patterns. That responsibility belongs to you. And willpower is how you carry it. There will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when your mind gives you every reason to quit. Days when the goal feels too far and the work feels too hard. Those are not the days you fail. Those are the days you train. Those are the days your willpower grows. Because it's easy to show up when everything feels good. It's easy to work when you're inspired. But the person who builds something great, that's the person who keeps moving when the feelings fade. And over time, that discipline becomes identity. That consistency becomes character. That willpower becomes your way of life. Not because you force it, but because you've built it, because you've tested it, because you've earned it. You don't wait for willpower, you create it. Willpower begins in the smallest moments. It doesn't show up fully formed in the face of great adversity. It is born in the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. When you choose to keep your word, not for applause, but for alignment. When you delay comfort, not because it's easy, but because it's right. That's where it starts. That's where the muscle grows. Every day you are either strengthening or weakening your willpower. There is no neutral. Every decision is a representative. Every choice is a vote. You either move toward the person you're becoming, or you slide back into who you were. And most people don't realize how much of their life is dictated by this silent force. The ability to say no to what's easy and yes to what's necessary. But before you can build it, you have to understand it. Willpower is not just grit. It's not just effort. It's a limited resource, and how you manage it determines how far you go. When you wake up, your tank is full or close to it. Every decision you make, every conflict you navigate, every temptation you resist, it draws from that tank. And if you're not careful, you burn through it before noon. That's why habits matter so much. When something becomes habitual, it no longer requires willpower. It runs on autopilot. That's not laziness. That's efficiency. Because if you had to consciously force yourself to do everything, eat, write, train, work, focus, parent, perform, you'd burn out. So the wise person builds habits to conserve willpower for the moments that demand it. This is why your morning matters. If you wake up and immediately hand your attention to distractions, television, emails, noise, you've already spent your most valuable mental currency. You've already let your discipline leak out before you've even stepped into the arena. But if you begin with intention, with clarity, structure, and alignment, you preserve that strength. You build a base to draw from. You also have to understand the role of decision fatigue. Every choice you make drains you. That's why the most disciplined people don't rely on willpower alone. They eliminate decisions. They simplify. They reduce friction. They know that the more energy they spend choosing, the less they'll have for execution. So they structure their life around consistency. Not because they're boring, but because they're effective. If you want to cultivate willpower, you must respect your energy. You must protect your focus. You must design your environment to support the person you are trying to become. That means removing temptations, building routines, and anchoring yourself in standards that don't require constant negotiation. The more energy you save, the more power you have when it counts. But that doesn't mean you never test yourself. Quite the opposite. You must test yourself daily. You must deliberately put yourself in situations where resistance appears so you can condition your response. Say no when it's easy. Say no when it's hard. Delay gratification. Choose the harder path. Train your nervous system to remain calm under discomfort. Discomfort is the gym where willpower grows. Every time you do the thing you don't feel like doing, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you finish the set, finish the page, finish the task, especially when quitting sounds reasonable, you stack another brick on the foundation of discipline. And over time, that foundation becomes unshakable. This isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming resilient. Resilient to the emotions that would normally pull you off track. Resilient to the doubt that creeps in. Resilient to the endless voice in your head that says, you've done enough for today. You can let up. You can relax. That voice never goes away, but it does get quieter when you stop obeying it. Most people give up not because they're weak, but because they listen to that voice too much. They let it run the show. They let it dictate their identity. But the truth is, you are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are what you choose to do in the face of it. And willpower is the ability to choose action when that voice is trying to negotiate a compromise. To win that internal battle, you need anchors. Anchors are the internal standards you do not compromise on. Not because of how you feel, but because of who you are. You don't negotiate with them. You don't put them up for debate. You honor them every day because honoring them keeps you strong. Maybe your anchor is waking up early no matter what. Maybe it's never skipping a workout. Maybe it's sticking to your commitments no matter how small. These anchors are sacred. They ground you when the world spins fast. They give you control when everything else feels chaotic. And they remind you your word to yourself matters. That's where self-trust comes from. Not from talent, not from confidence. From doing what you said you'd do over and over again. And the more you do that, the more you believe yourself, the more you respect yourself. And that respect fuels your willpower. Because now, breaking the standard is no longer an option. It's not just about skipping the gym. It's about breaking alignment. It's about disrespecting yourself. And when you reach that point, when you've tied your discipline to your identity, you don't need hype. You don't need someone to push you. You are the one who pushes. Because now, discipline is not something you do. It's someone you are. But it didn't happen overnight. It happened in the tiny moments, the choice to start when it was inconvenient, to continue when it was uncomfortable, to finish when it was unbearable. Those are the moments that shape you. Those are the moments that people never see, but they make all the difference. And yes, there will be days you slip, you miss, you falter. That's not failure. That's feedback. Use it, learn from it, but don't let it pull you back into the old story. Don't let it convince you that your discipline is gone. It's not. It's waiting to be reclaimed, one decision away. Willpower isn't perfection. It's persistence. It's doing the work again and again, even when it feels mundane, even when it feels thankless, even when no one notices, especially when no one notices, because you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it for who you become. And who you become through that quiet, relentless discipline is someone most people will never understand. Because most people never do the work long enough to get there. But you will. Because you've made the decision and you've kept making it. Every morning, every hour, every moment of resistance, another chance to rise. Cultivating willpower means mastering your inner environment first. Most people think they lose discipline because of outside factors, temptations, pressure, distractions. But the truth is, it's rarely what's out there that breaks you. It's what's happening inside. Your internal dialogue, your emotional regulation, your ability to stay calm and focused under pressure. You cannot build lasting willpower if you are emotionally reactive. If your actions are constantly controlled by how you feel in the moment, you will never be consistent because emotions are fickle. They shift fast. You can go from inspired to exhausted in minutes, from focused to frustrated in seconds. That's why your actions must be anchored in principle, not feeling. Emotional discipline is the root of all willpower. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't manage your emotions, you will abandon it the first time life gets difficult. You'll rationalize shortcuts. You'll justify procrastination. You'll excuse failure, not because you lack potential, but because you allowed your state to dictate your standard. So you must train your mind to observe, not obey. To watch the thought arise, I don't want to do this right now, and not flinch. To feel the discomfort and keep moving anyway. You're not trying to kill the feeling. You're learning to act in spite of it. That is the first skill of mental strength. Response over reaction. You can feel overwhelmed and still take the next step. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel uncertain and still commit. That gap between stimulus and response, that's your power. And every time you pause, take a breath, and choose the right action anyway, you're building that power. Meditation, journaling, solitude, these are not luxuries. They're not just wellness habits. They are training grounds for willpower. They teach you to sit with yourself, to deal with your thoughts before they become decisions, to clarify your priorities before you get pulled in 100 directions. Because if you don't lead your mind, it will lead you and not to where you want to go. But it's not just about your inner world. Your physical body is part of the system too. Your willpower lives in your biology as much as your beliefs. Sleep deprivation destroys it. Poor nutrition dulls it. Sedentary living weakens it. You cannot live out of alignment with your physical nature and expect mental dominance. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need to be an athlete. But you do need to care. You need to move. You need to nourish. You need to rest. Because your mind doesn't live in a vacuum. It lives in a vessel. And that vessel must be maintained. Hydration, clean food, movement, rest. These are not optional. They're not separate from discipline. They are discipline. They are rituals of self-respect. And every time you respect your body, you build trust with yourself. And every time you neglect it, you weaken your foundation. Discipline is holistic. You cannot build it in isolation. You cannot be disciplined at work and sloppy at home and expect that strength to hold. You cannot be focused in the gym and chaotic in your relationships and expect your willpower to grow. Your integrity must expand into all areas of life. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're trying to be congruent. Because when your actions align across domains, your thoughts, your words, your behavior, you feel powerful. When they don't, you feel fractured, confused, weak. And weakness is not a lack of strength. It is a lack of alignment. It is the friction between what you say and what you do. The gap between your values and your habits. The split between your intention and your execution. That's what drains willpower faster than anything else. So you simplify. You get honest. You strip away the lies. You stop pretending you're okay with mediocrity in one area and expecting excellence in another. You bring every part of your life up to standard, not through perfection, but through consistency. And consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It doesn't mean zero mistakes. It means you don't fall for the same excuse over and over again. It means you catch yourself sooner. You correct faster. You return to the path with less drama. Because you're not here to punish yourself. You're here to lead yourself. And self-leadership is the ultimate form of willpower. It's not about force. It's about responsibility. You don't wait to feel motivated. You don't need someone to check in. You are the one who shows up. You are the one who keeps going. You are the one who holds the line, no matter what. This is where discipline becomes freedom, because now you are no longer controlled by emotion, no longer pulled by distraction, no longer confused by chaos. You move with clarity. You decide with precision. You act with purpose. And the people around you, they will feel it. They may not understand it, but they'll feel it. Because most people live in reaction. And when they encounter someone who lives in intention, it's magnetic, it's rare, and it's powerful. But you're not doing this to impress anyone. You're doing it because you've outgrown the old story. The one where you quit when it gets hard. The one where you start strong but fade. The one where you negotiate with your own standards. That story is over. You're writing a new one now. And in this story, you are consistent. You are clear. You are disciplined. Not because it's easy, not because you always feel like it, but because you've decided. And that decision has become identity. And that identity leads your life. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And willpower, as powerful as it is, doesn't exist in isolation. It lives within the structure you build around it. If your life is designed to drain you, no amount of raw discipline will carry you. If your environment is built to distract you, your focus will leak, no matter how strong your intentions are. So if you want to cultivate unstoppable willpower, you must engineer your environment to serve your highest values. Not your impulses, not your emotions, your values, the things that matter when the noise fades, the behaviors that still hold weight when the motivation disappears. That means removing temptation, not resisting it every time it shows up. It means eliminating unnecessary decisions, not flexing your willpower on every choice throughout the day. It means surrounding yourself with clarity, not chaos. If your environment is chaotic, your behavior will follow. If your surroundings pull you off track, your discipline will constantly bleed out, just trying to stay centered. So you start with the basics. You design your day before it begins. You define your priorities in advance. You know what you're working on, why it matters, and when you'll do it. You don't leave those decisions to the emotion of the moment, because the moment will lie to you. It will whisper comfort. It will crave ease. It will seek escape. And you must already have a structure in place that says, we don't negotiate with that voice. Structure is not restriction, it's protection. It protects your energy from distraction. It protects your time from noise. It protects your willpower from being spent on decisions that don't move you forward. When you know what you're doing and why, you don't need to wrestle with yourself all day. You just execute. And that execution creates momentum, because every time you follow through on a plan you made when you were clear, you build trust. Every time you keep a schedule you set when you were focused, you build confidence. And that confidence becomes your fuel. Not excitement, not hype. Confidence rooted in consistency. Confidence earned by your actions. But consistency doesn't come from force. It comes from rhythm. You build that rhythm by stacking wins early in the day. You do the first thing you said you'd do. You get that first rep in. You make your bed. You finish the reading. You show up for the workout. Not for the task itself, but for the signal it sends. The signal that says, we do what we say. We follow through. And that identity bleeds into everything else. Because the way you do one thing eventually becomes the way you do everything. If you allow yourself to skip the small things, you'll eventually justify skipping the big things. But if you hold the line on the small commitments, the bigger ones become easier to manage. This is why standards matter more than motivation. Motivation will rise and fall. But standards, they stay. They guide your actions regardless of how you feel. You don't brush your teeth because you're motivated. You do it because it's your standard. And your discipline must reach that level. It must become who you are, not what you do when it's convenient. The mistake most people make is relying on inspiration to carry them. They wait until they feel like it. They think willpower means waking up fired up every day. But discipline isn't about being fired up. It's about being dialed in, steady, committed, regardless of emotion. So you remove the guesswork. You remove the loopholes. You define your non-negotiables. Maybe that's writing every day, training every day, meditating every day, showing up on time. Whatever they are, you cement them in your life, not as goals, but as the baseline, the floor, not the ceiling. And when you miss, when you fall short, you don't spiral. You don't build shame around it. You correct quickly. You return to rhythm fast. Because the longer you wait to return, the harder it gets. And the more emotion you attach to the miss, the less likely you are to learn from it. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being precise. You measure what matters. You review your habits. You reflect on your behavior. You catch patterns early. You ask hard questions. You remove what no longer fits. You upgrade your routines like you upgrade your tools. And that reflection keeps you sharp. Because you're not just grinding for the sake of grinding. You're moving with intelligence. You're adjusting with data. You're not just working hard, you're working smart. And that awareness allows you to scale your willpower. It allows you to carry more weight without burning out. Because burnout isn't just from doing too much. It's from doing too much of what doesn't matter. When your work is misaligned, when your habits don't reflect your values, when your effort is scattered instead of focused, your soul gets tired. And willpower cannot thrive in a tired soul. So you audit often. You ask, is what I'm doing aligned with what I say matters to me? Are my habits designed for who I want to become, or are they keeping me who I've always been? And if something feels off, you don't ignore it. You investigate. You refine. You don't chase hacks. You chase harmony. You don't look for the easiest route. You look for the clearest path. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to become someone. And every decision reflects that. Every behavior supports that. And here's the payoff. When your life is built on structure, when your standards are high, when your routines are aligned, you no longer need to force discipline. It flows. It becomes part of your rhythm. You feel off when you don't show up. You feel disconnected when you don't do the work. And that's the kind of accountability you want. Not one imposed from the outside, but one generated from within. There is a deeper level of willpower, beyond discipline, beyond environment, beyond systems. It is the will to keep going when nothing seems to be working. The will to stay in the game when progress feels invisible. The will to persist not just through pain, but through silence. Through the slow, grinding work that doesn't produce immediate results. This is where most people give up. Not because they're weak, but because they've never trained themselves to endure the quiet. We live in a world addicted to feedback, to validation, to applause. When we work, we want recognition. When we create, we want praise. When we change, we want people to notice. And when that doesn't come quickly, we begin to question our effort. We begin to wonder if it's worth it, if it matters, if it's working. But true willpower is forged in the shadows, in the seasons of obscurity, in the mornings when no one's awake to see you grinding, in the evenings when you choose one more rep, one more page, one more disciplined decision, and no one claps for it. That's when you're building something unbreakable, because you're not doing it for the response. You're doing it for the standard. The real test isn't whether you can push through pain. It's whether you can stay consistent in the absence of reward. Whether you can keep showing up when nothing is happening, when it's not exciting, when it's not sexy, when it's just you and the work. That's when you find out who you are. That's when you find out how bad you really want it. And that's where long-term transformation lives. Not in big wins, not in dramatic breakthroughs, but in repeated action, in the refusal to be swayed by circumstances, in the relentless return to your process, day after day, week after week, year after year. You train this by building a relationship with boredom. You stop needing every workout to feel intense. You stop needing every task to be stimulating. You stop needing results to feel good. You fall in love with repetition. You master monotony because that's where the edge lives. Boredom is not the enemy. It's the filter. It's the test that separates the committed from the curious, the process-oriented from the outcome-obsessed, the high performer from the amateur. And when you embrace it, you shift. You stop chasing stimulation. You start chasing execution. The people who win long-term aren't necessarily more talented. They're more consistent. They've simply outlasted the quitters. They've worked through the days where nothing made sense, where everything hurt, where progress was invisible, and because they stayed, they grew. And because they grew, they started winning. You need to build that level of emotional durability, the kind that doesn't depend on a scoreboard, the kind that doesn't collapse when you don't hit your numbers, the kind that keeps going because it's not about what you get, it's about who you're becoming. And that requires vision. Not hype, not vague ambition, a clear, grounded vision of the person you are building. Because willpower weakens when your vision fades, when your why becomes blurry, when you forget what this is all for. So you revisit your vision often. You speak it out loud. You write it down. You visualize it when you're tired, when you're doubting, when you're drifting. You remind yourself, this is not about now. This is about where I'm headed. This is about the future I'm forging. And you build patience. You stop demanding immediate payoff. You stop needing instant return. You commit for the long haul. You build with the understanding that anything worth having takes time, takes repetition, takes discomfort. You stop thinking in days and start thinking in decades. You stop reacting to setbacks and start responding with strategy. You don't quit because it's hard. You don't quit because it's slow. You don't quit because you're tired. You rest, you recover, and then you return stronger, sharper, hungrier. You become the kind of person who trusts the process, who respects the work, who understands that results don't come from occasional effort. They come from accumulated action. The sum of thousands of choices you made when it would have been easier not to. This is when discipline becomes identity. You no longer rely on motivation because you don't need it. You no longer chase passion because you found purpose. And purpose is stronger than passion. Passion comes and goes. Purpose persists. Your willpower becomes quiet, steady, built on integrity, built on alignment, built on a foundation that cannot be shaken by circumstance. You stop flinching at resistance. You stop fearing discomfort. You welcome the pressure because you know it's shaping you, it's refining you, it's forging you into someone unrecognizable from who you used to be. This is not theory. This is not inspiration. This is a system. This is a structure. This is a way of living that very few will choose because it's hard, because it's lonely, because it demands everything. But if you commit to it, you'll find something on the other side that most people will never touch. You will find peace, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You will find freedom, not because the world gave it to you, but because you built it brick by brick through your decisions. And you will find clarity, Because when you show up for yourself that consistently, you stop questioning your worth. You stop questioning your ability. You simply act. Willpower is not an emotion. It's not a spark. It's not something that visits you when you feel ready. It is a choice, repeated over and over, until that choice becomes behavior, until that behavior becomes identity. And then, eventually, it becomes inevitability. This final level of willpower, the one most people never reach, is not about struggle. It's not about wrestling with yourself every day. It's about alignment. It's about congruence, where who you are, what you value, and how you live are all pointing in the same direction. That's when you stop fighting yourself. That's when your energy stops leaking. That's when your effort compounds without friction. But to get there, you must face the one thing most people avoid: the internal contradictions, the places where your actions don't match your values, where your goals don't match your habits, where your words don't match your behavior. Every time you ignore those contradictions, you fracture your willpower. Because willpower can't thrive in hypocrisy. It breaks down when your life is out of sync. It crumbles under the weight of your own cognitive dissonance. That's why some people work so hard and still feel tired all the time. Because they're not just carrying responsibilities, they're carrying internal conflict. So you stop avoiding the truth. You look yourself in the mirror and ask the real questions. Where am I out of alignment? Where am I saying one thing and doing another? Where am I settling? Where am I hiding? Where am I lying to myself to avoid the work? And then you confront it. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop giving your flaws permission to lead. You bring your entire life up to the standard that your vision requires. You no longer tolerate patterns that don't match who you want to become. This is where character enters. Willpower is not just a tool, it is a reflection of character. And character is built brick by brick through the choices you make when no one is watching, through the integrity you maintain when there's no reward, through the loyalty you show to your future self, even when the present self is tired. Because loyalty to your future self is the ultimate expression of willpower. Most people betray their future for comfort now, for ease now, for escape now. But when you learn to honor your future, you live differently. You eat differently. You spend differently. You work differently. You train differently. You speak differently. You begin to feel that shift, that pride, that sense that you are not living randomly anymore. You are living deliberately. And when you start living deliberately, you stop chasing purpose. You realize you've been creating it all along. This kind of willpower doesn't just transform your results. It transforms your relationships. Because when you become someone who honors their word, who leads themselves, who disciplines their life, people feel safe around you. They trust you. They admire you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent, because you've done the work, because you show up. And leadership always starts there, with personal discipline, with personal standards, with personal clarity. You don't lead because you say the right things. You lead because you do the right things over and over until your example becomes louder than your advice. Willpower at this level is about carrying responsibility, not just for yourself, but for others, for your team, for your family, for the people who look to you, whether they say it out loud or not, because they're watching. And when they see you carry the weight, it gives them permission to carry their own. But you don't wait to be chosen. You don't wait to be recognized. You lead yourself first. And that leadership becomes gravity. It pulls others upward. It elevates the standard around you. It reshapes the culture at work, at home, in your circle. Because strong willpower is contagious. But it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's humble. It's forged in hours that no one sees, in decisions that most people avoid, in the discipline of saying, I will hold this line. I will not compromise. I will not fold, no matter how tired I am. This is when you stop relying on motivation altogether. You've transcended it. You've replaced it with principle. You don't wait to feel inspired. You are moved by duty. You are pulled by vision. You're driven by the standard you've chosen to live by. And when you live that way, willpower is no longer a struggle. It's not a battle. It's a flow. Because now your life supports your discipline. Your identity reinforces your behavior. Your habits protect your energy. Your choices align with your values. It doesn't mean you'll never have hard days. You will, but they won't break you. Because now you are built to carry more. Because now your foundation is real. Because now you've earned your confidence. Not through shortcuts, but through sweat. And there will be moments, quiet ones, where you realize, I don't need the world to tell me I'm doing well. I know. I know because I show up. I know because I follow through. I know because I live in alignment. And that knowing is peace. That knowing is power. That knowing is freedom. You don't need more potential. You don't need more intelligence. You don't need more opportunity. What you need is willpower. Unshakable, unbreakable, unrelenting willpower. The kind that doesn't waver with emotion. The kind that doesn't disappear when the mood shifts. The kind that stands tall when everything around you crumbles. This kind of willpower is not a gift. It is not reserved for the elite. It is not something you're born with. It is something you build. And you build it through repetition, through small decisions, through follow-through when you don't feel like it, through honor when no one is watching. You build it by choosing discomfort over ease, discipline over impulse, consistency over chaos. Not once, not occasionally, but every day, every hour, every moment where you are tempted to quit, to lower your standard, to betray your future for temporary relief. That's where it grows. That's where it's forged. Willpower is not what gets you started. It's what keeps you going. When the novelty wears off, when the inspiration fades, when the resistance is loud, when no one is clapping, when the grind is all there is, that's when it matters. That's when it becomes real. And the beauty is, it's always available to you. You don't have to wait. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect plan. You just decide, and then you decide again. You decide that you are no longer available for the version of yourself that quits. You decide that who you are becoming is worth the struggle, worth the sweat, worth the silence. You won't always see the results right away, but that's not the point. You're not here for quick wins. You're not here for temporary applause. You're here to become someone unrecognizable to the old you. You're here to build something that lasts, something that doesn't fall when life hits, something that doesn't fold when pressure mounts. You're here to cultivate a will so strong that the world has to adjust to it, a will so steady that your goals become inevitable. Not because they're easy, but because you no longer give yourself permission to walk away. And when that happens, when you live that way, you stop hoping for change. You start creating it. You stop searching for strength. You start revealing it. You stop asking for things to be easier. You start preparing to become stronger. You already have everything you need. The question is, will you show up for it? Will you train it? Will you earn it? Will you stop being seduced by comfort and step into the discomfort that produces character? Because this isn't about hype. It's not about theory. It's not about sounding motivated. It's about being someone who doesn't flinch when things get hard. Someone who carries weight when no one else will. Someone who keeps walking when the path disappears. That someone is you, not someday, not in some future when everything lines up. Right now, this moment, this choice, this step. That's where your willpower lives. Not in the future, but in the fire of now.